Good evening and welcome to the Nuts and Bolts Show Super Bowl special. I'm Don.
And I'm Sean.
And Sean, I can't think of anybody who I'd rather have on with us right now than our friend Dominick from the New York Sports Show on YouTube. He was here once with us before. We brought him back on. Again, I think it's an honor. What do you think?
I think it's going to be an awesome interview. I think he's going to have some great insight on the Super Bowl. How about we bring him out now?
He's a character. Yes, absolutely. Let's bring him out.
Hey, Dominick, thanks for coming on again. We're excited to have you back. So let's get right down to it. So we both know who's in the Super Bowl right now, but what do you think was this season's biggest surprise that you didn't see coming? So kind of aside from who's in the Super Bowl currently, just in the general NFL, what was the biggest surprise to you this season?
Well, first of all, I would like to say, I am happy to be back. Love watching the Nuts and Boltz show. Very happy to be back. With that said, this was just such an interesting NFL season. On top of COVID and just a ton of other things, it was just so interesting. Personally, for me, I think the most surprising thing was the Pittsburgh Steelers starting the season off 11-0 and finishing 12-4. That was just absolutely just unbelievable. Of course, it's hard to win a single game in the NFL, but having such a long winning streak, such a long hot streak with all that momentum, it just collapsed to the Washington football team, which I think maybe even be more surprising than that, them even making the playoffs. But right after that loss, they just went downhill and only won one more game after they went 11-1 to finish 12-4.
That's interesting. I was thinking about this question and where I thought you were going to go with that answer. And I see that you are wearing your gang green shirt. So I figured you would talk about the Jets and how they just weren't winning anything. No matter what they did, they weren't winning. But you went with Pittsburgh, and that was I guess a shock to see, because they were doing so well, and they are without a doubt well-coached team. And for them to collapse like that is pretty much unprecedented, to see the way it happened anyway. But yeah, that's a great answer. So that we were interested in that and your insight on the NFL as a whole, because, with COVID and all the restrictions and crowds and all that stuff, it was a challenging season. Teams would have to bench guys and coaches even because they contracted COVID. I'm sure you and I and Sean, I'll speak for him too. You can't wait for things just to go back to normal.
Yeah, I cannot wait for all the normalcy to be back. And the NFL, it's a very injury-prone sport. And on top of that, with this season, you got to worry about players having to be in quarantine because of the coronavirus. So it was like a whole new injury that could happen. And we've seen teams, for example, the Denver Broncos started a week without any one of their starting quarterbacks, whether it was first, second, or third string, or even practice squad. That was just absolutely unbelievable.
Right. Absolutely. And I bet you that both coaches are keeping their players locked down to avoid COVID issues.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if that is the truth. Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, one of them, well, both of them, I guess you could say, especially Mahomes, will both be in the Hall of Fame at some point at the end of their careers. Mahomes already having a Super Bowl win to his name. Brady has just so many. It's hard to even keep track. He's been in the Super Bowl half of his career.
Let's move on. Let's break down each team. I'll start with Tampa Bay. What did Tampa Bay have to do to pave the road to get to the show this season?
I think the biggest thing that Tampa Bay had to do was just to perform. Of course, Jameis Winston, they got rid of him. Tom Brady ends up going to Tampa Bay, bringing a longtime Patriots friend and future Hall of Famer tight end Rob Gronkowski. I don't think anyone expected the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to make it to the Super Bowl. Many expected a playoff run, but I think that they would get an expectation in every way possible. But I think the biggest thing that really defined this season, they could have got a few more wins. I really, truly believe that. Biggest thing, Tom Brady, 12 interceptions. That is just way too many in what is a Super Bowl caliber team this season. You cannot have your quarterback throwing 12 interceptions. And I do believe that if Tom Brady did not throw as many, you know, I just want to point out first that he did throw 40 touchdowns. So it was not like an offset ratio to touchdowns and interceptions. But I do think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would have got at least 1 or 2 more wins if it wasn't for the interceptions thrown.
Sure. Now, listen, that it is interesting because, you know, I am not a Tom Brady fan. I respect the talent, but being a Jet fan, I don't like him. And I do like the Giants too. And just, you know, quick shout out for the Giants, the only team that's beaten Tom Brady in the playoffs, Super Bowl twice.
Yes.
But, do you think Tom Brady has gained respect now that he's off away from New England, he's away from Belichick, and he's performed still at a high level at his age? Has he gained respect from people who don't necessarily like him very much?
100%. 100%. He showed that it is not, Bill Belichick or just all the Patriots. He showed that he could go to a whole different division and go out, win games, and go to a Super Bowl and possibly win it. He definitely has earned my respect.
Tom Brady is a heck of a quarterback, and whether you like him personally, I don't know, but you got to respect his effort. And he's a heck of a quarterback, that's for sure.
I think it's kind of funny because he doesn't even like being called the GOAT, the greatest of all time, which I think is hilarious because he really is. We will never see a guy like Tom Brady who got picked so low in the draft have a type of career like this. He spent half of his career in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to Kansas City. So just like Tampa Bay, talk to us about what Kansas City did right to get them into the Super Bowl this year.
I think the biggest thing that helped Kansas City is just having a solid team. The offensive line and defensive line was there. Only had 2 losses, 14-2 win-loss record. You couldn't ask for anything better. But you also got to put it on their coach, Andy Reid, having an absolutely just great coaching career. And yeah, I just want to point out, I think everyone knows this, though. They did win the Super Bowl last year. So, of course, a Super Bowl caliber team looking to go back to back. Overall, great season, though, especially with all the uncertainties with the coronavirus and all that. They just had a great season, managing very well. And I think the biggest thing that showed how much talent is on the Chiefs is in the playoff game against the Cleveland Browns. When Mahomes got taken out, the backup quarterback goes in, and he just did an absolutely amazing job. I can't remember his name, but he just did an absolutely phenomenal job.
Yeah, they probably just called him that guy.
Yeah.
Probably.
I don't think anyone knew who he was before that game, but people definitely know who he is now.
I think that it's going to be a tight Super Bowl if I had to pick a winner or how the game is going to be played. I think it's going to be close. And I was looking at the 2 quarterbacks and looking at their stats, and they're very close in yards, in touchdowns. And then, like you mentioned, the only thing that is different between Brady and Mahomes is the interceptions, where Brady has thrown 12 and Mahomes has only thrown 6. But both are very efficient quarterbacks. And really, you know, if they're both playing at a high level, I don't think anybody's going to blow anybody out.
Yeah. Well, personally for me, I'm looking at more at overall team stats because the quarterbacks could have a hell of a day and just do a great job. Overall, it's up to the team. And if you look at the team stats for both the Chiefs and Buccaneers, those are just as tight as it could be as well. It's for Kansas City, 29 points per game. Buccaneers, 30 points per game. Kansas City allows 20, Buccaneers 23. The biggest separation is total yards per game, with Kansas City getting just above 400 and the Buccaneers getting just below 400, 393. But I think the biggest thing is going to come to defense, and these teams are in a dead tie. 366 total yards allowed on average per game. That's going to be big. This is going to be a defensive game. I feel like it's not going to really be offense. I just think it's going to be who could just keep the ball away the longest. I think we're going to see a lot of field goals being made and a lot of touchdowns.
Really? Well, let's break that down a little bit further then. Let's talk about keys to victory and do both teams what you feel they must do and what they must avoid.
I think the key victory. Buccaneers, Tom Brady, 12 interceptions. We've seen Super Bowl winning quarterbacks throw a lot more in the season, but that does concern me 100%. I think what the Buccaneers need to do with Tom Brady is, unless you can make the pass, throw it. If you know you can make it, throw it. If you are uncertain, don't throw it. If you think you're going to get sacked, throw away. You do not want to risk getting an interception. You do not want to give Patrick Mahomes the ball for more time than is needed, because he is a beast when he has, and he has shown even in last year's Super Bowl that even if they're behind by a lot, they could still come together and rally and end up winning.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing for the Kansas City Chiefs to win is just a good offensive line. Give Mahomes enough time to throw, and that's really it. The defense have been perfect all year. No, really any cracks in it there has not been. So I just think it's going to be up to the OL.
Yeah. Really, I mean, that's spot on, I think. And I think it's interesting you said that the defenses may play a huge role in forcing a lot of either field goals or punts. And so then it's going to come down to a field position type game and clock management. And I think coaching wise, I think we would give the edge to Mr. Reed in Kansas City, wouldn't you?
I would 100%. I would definitely, because the biggest thing that the Buccaneers have, defensive coordinator Todd Bowles. We've seen what he could do on the Jets. Not the best decisions, and the fact that he has a coaching opportunity with the Buccaneers, and now he will even be in the Super Bowl, and he did a decent job defensively in this whole season. It's just an absolute miracle. But I do not trust his judgment. I'm not just saying that because I'm a Jets fan. I just want to point that out right there. I just do not trust his judgment overall, and I feel like he's going to do something very risky, and it's going to end up blowing the game.
Right. And before we get to Sean's last one, if you could pick one player, and I didn't send this question to you, Dominic, so forgive me, but if you could pick a player on either side that would be like a sleeper fantasy type player, one that's going to come out of nowhere and just do something big, who do you think that would be, if you can?
I feel like for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I do think that it will be Rob Gronkowski. I know overall, though, he's not really a sleeper, but in the playoffs, he has kind of been a sleeper player. Of course, tight end, they have been getting used more and more in the recent years, mainly because of Tom Brady and him, but he has not really been targeted as much in the playoffs. So I feel like people are kind of viewing him as a sleeper. Overall, though, I think he will be targeted a decent amount, especially if Tampa Bay is behind, because Brady is used to throwing to him. And for Kansas City, I do think it's going to be Tyreek Hill, the running back, because, of course, if Mahomes not get anything going in the air, they will be doing the one game a lot. And I really think a lot of people will expect that to happen, because we saw the Chiefs throw mainly last year's Super Bowl.
All right, Sean.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that. I just want to loop back to Tom Brady. I think what he really has to be careful about is being too hypersensitive of throwing interceptions, because we've seen that in the past where quarterbacks become too careful because of mistakes that they made, and then they don't throw wide open passes that would lead to a touchdown, and that could cost a game. But moving on from that, though, Don and I would be very blessed if you would give us your Super Bowl prediction. Who do you think is going to win? Why? And who do you think is going to get the MVP?
I think that the Kansas City Chiefs will win, mainly because Patrick Mahomes, of course, being more of a young player, his reaction time is better. And second of all, interceptions, of course, only throwing 6 interceptions to Tom Brady's 12, so he does not throw interceptions, a lot more yards than Tom Brady. Only difference is just 2 lesser touchdowns with 38. But he has shown in the playoffs that he is on point and that he could get the ball down the field, especially when needed in last year's Super Bowl when they were behind with the San Francisco 49ers. So I think that even if the the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are winning, I feel like Mahomes will bring the ball down the field multiple times if needed to score. And I do feel like it's going to be a very low-scoring game. I feel like it's going to be around 14 to 10 points. Of course, Kansas City winning, MVP going to Patrick Mahomes.
Very good. That's basically along the lines of what I was thinking. But I think overall it's going to be a really good game. We have two very good quarterbacks and we have two very good offenses. So I think to the point that you mentioned, I think it's going to come down to defense, who can stop the ball the most times.
100%. You know, some could say that because of that, it's going to be a boring Super Bowl, but I think this is going to be one of the most interesting ones. You have the young gun who already won a Super Bowl against the veteran who has been in the Super Bowl half of his career and who has won more than half of the Super Bowls he's been in. So in the last 10 Super Bowls, there's been a Patriots quarterback, or at least a former Patriots quarterback in the Super Bowl in the last 10 years, with Cam Newton, who's a Patriots quarterback now with the Panthers, Tom Brady, who's now in the Buccaneers, and we had Jimmy Garoppolo last year. So it's just really amazing, all the Super Bowl contender and winner quarterbacks that have either come from New England or that are in New England right now.
Yeah, that is interesting. It is going to be, I think, a really, really good game. I don't get charged up for games when my teams are not playing, but this one I think is going to be good. And I think that pretty much will wrap it up for us. So you've heard it here on the Nuts and Bolts Show from Dominick, who runs the New York Sports Podcast, #1 New York sports podcast there is. He is a star, a true star, and we're always glad to have him on.
Yeah, I would just like to thank you guys again for letting me on. Like I said, when I was on here about a month and a half ago, long time watcher of the Nuts and Boltz Show. Absolutely love this, and I love being on it. It's a true honor to be talk to you fine folks. I love it.
Thank you. We're glad to have you. You're a friend of the show.
For Don and Sean, this has been a Nuts and Boltz Show. And again, thank you very much to Dominick from the New York Sports Show on YouTube for coming on. Dominick, do you want to give your social media or YouTube channel name?
Yeah, sure. So I just asked the viewers before you subscribe to me on YouTube, the New York Sports Show. Definitely subscribe if you have not to the Nuts and Boltz Show. And that's all. Thank you guys once again for having me on.
So with that, that's the Nuts and Boltz Show Super Bowl special.
See ya.
Later.